What's your take on that? How much inseparable Indian and France cultural aspects are?
Actually, there is not such a strong understanding between India and France if you compare it with the UK, for example, because it's so very much near. There were so many old links, cultural links. But what I know, what I experience, is that French people really have a very positive prejudice with Indian culture. If you just interview a random guy on the streets in France, most of the people will love Indians, love India, but they don't know a lot about it. This is the reason why it's really worthwhile developing this link, because I am absolutely convinced that the greeting of Indian culture in France will be high. I saw that quite recently because India was the invited country in the festival Salon du Livre de Paris, like the Paris Book Fair. There were many Indian writers, Indian cartoonists being invited, and everybody was so happy to interview them and to discover all their work. So I think this is important. And what I feel traveling here in India as a Frenchman is that French artists have really possibly a new audience just to meet in India, because I felt that there was so much curiosity, of course in Bengal and Kolkata, because people are devoted to books and interested in that matters, cultural matters. But I've been traveling in several states as well, with some workshops in Ahmedabad, at the NID, and I discovered so many young talents who really impressed me, and they knew very much about French culture, French cartoons, and I was surprised that they could, owing to the social networks and the internet, know much more than the older generation about all that. When I was living in Kolkata 27 years ago, most of the people just had no opportunity to encounter all those cultural products. Now they have, and so we really, I think, can develop that in a really, really exciting way.
You had been to Shantiniketan also, and Rabindranath Tagore was a very close pal with Roma Rolla, and he wrote several letters to Roma Rolla also. What's your take on Rabindranath Tagore's teaching that France has taken a very good way?
I have been doing a series of cartoons with philosopher Charles Pépin called La Planète des Sages, Wise Guys, and it was a way to do cartoons about famous philosophers and famous concepts throughout history of the world. And actually I understood that whether they are Greek thinkers, German thinkers, everybody know their names. You have statues of them everywhere at the corner of the streets, but people do not really read what they've been writing. You've got a devotion, but without a real knowledge of it. And I think this is the same case for Tagore. Actually, people know Tagore, they adore Tagore, you know the statues, you know the portraits you have in the lobbies of hotels and bookshops, but there are not so many people reading it, learning how to deal with his thoughts. So I think whether it is in India or in France, humor and cartoons are perhaps a good way to make a step forward toward more understanding of classical culture, the way Tagore represented it.
What do you think, how much the humors and cartoons are reaching to the people in this generation of social media, where everywhere is some cheap memes are circulating everywhere? So how much the acceptance the humors and cartoons have till now?
If you compare cartoons to all the fuss on social networks, you were mentioning memes and all the jokes that just can go around on Twitter or Instagram. Of course, the challenge is to face this unloyal concurrence, but because cartoon is more demanding, because there is references, because there is perhaps second meanings within a single cartoons, then it's something perhaps more elaborated that lasts a little bit longer, and you can compare it with like some candies. There are some fast candies that you just chew it and then disappear and the taste doesn't last, and some other kind of food which is more essential for the body that really feeds you, that brings you what you need. And I would just compare it with that two things. Actually, you have to eat to survive. So I think you have to understand some culture to survive, and not only some superficial fun, the way the social network just display it.
And who is your favorite cartoonist of all time, and who is your contemporary favorite?
Are you talking about cartoons in India or generally?
Generally.
There is a cartoonist which is not as well known as it should. It's a fantastic, incredibly poetic and witty and funny cartoonist from Asia. He's a Malaysian cartoonist. He has been doing some editorial cartoon in the New Straits Times of Singapore for decades. He must be 70 something now, and his name is Lat, L-A-T. He has been doing especially two books who are exhilarating. It's Kampung Boy, telling his childhood in a small village in rural Malaysia, and then Town Boy when he comes to the city to make his studies. And it's fantastic, and I would compare it with one of my other idol, who is French, who is Sampé. He's a great, fantastic. He's not only like a mere cartoonist, he's a great graphic artist. I mean, he will remain in history according to me. You might have known some of his cartoons because he's been doing so many front pages for magazine The New Yorker. So this is one of the ones I really like. Among them, there are so many of them, but these two, Lat and Sampé, should be people that you should inquire about.
And you have worked as a Chinese language exponent. So, what intrigues you to learn Chinese language? Do you stay in Tangra intrigues you to learn Chinese language, or otherwise?
Actually, I was studying and teaching Chinese history, not exactly the language, but for that you necessarily have to master the language, because otherwise it's quite difficult to step toward Chinese culture. Language is everything for the Chinese people. So, and writing, which is a whole civilization just concentrated in the system. So it was pure serendipity, because I was supposed to learn Arabic language when I was 15, entering French high school. But then they kicked me off the school, and I had to go in another one, and I had only the opportunity to choose between several languages. You had Hebrew, Italian, and Chinese. So I took Chinese with no interest toward China at all. But the teacher was so charismatic and incredible that I just went on forever studying Chinese language, and I used it in my further studies and my further creation. So that was really random, but it was really a chance that just life could give me at that point.
Do you love watching films?
I'm a big film watcher, and actually one may say that influences within my work come more perhaps from movie comedies than from cartoons. So yes, of course, I'm the kind of guy who just follow a lot movies and series.
From film perspective, India and France are very much similar, and Satyajit Ray was also a very close connection with Jean Renoir, and the Godard, Truffaut is very popular in Indian culture, and specifically in Kolkata. Just now we had the Kolkata International Film Festival, and the films of Godard, Truffaut have been seen there. How much Indian films, the French people showing Indian films, is this the same way, or the French people is not showing Indian films?
Actually, cinema lovers in French have a special cult for great Indian directors, including, of course, this forever monument Satyajit Ray. But most of the people, like everywhere in the world, what they get to know are Bollywood movies and musicals. So this is how they mostly know Indian cinema culture now. All the movies coming from Mumbai, and so who have an influence and that one watch at home.
And personally, Satyajit Ray also have done lots of illustrations and lots of cartoon works also. Have you seen them, or do you have any influence about any Indian cartoonist or Indian
I wouldn't.
in your work?
I wouldn't say I have influence with Indian cartoonists, but I had pleasure back in the time to read Lakshman's cartoons, for example, in the newspapers and or in the small books he had published. And I discovered recently new generation of Indian cartoonists, including, for example, Apupan, who's in Bangalore now and doing his Rashtraman series and all sorts of other stories. And I thought he was quite talented. But it's still something I have to discover and know more and that was this travel I'm doing in India now is a great opportunity to discover all the others.
And political cartoons is very much in thing in India now because the political situation is very volatile in India. How much the political cartoons and satirical cartoons are in thing in France? And what do you think, what's your take on the France political situation now? Is it okay for every cartoonist or every intellectual artist?
For now, we are lucky enough in France to be able to criticize and to be really offensive within politics. We can criticize president, power, governments, the police or justice with no problem at all. I mean, if we have to have some lawsuits or that kind of thing, that will be coming from big companies who want to defend their marks when we attack them. This is about it. So we are quite lucky, and we understand that the pressure around the world upon cartoonists and cultural creation is high. And I've seen how much it is rising and higher now in India. So I hope, really, from the bottom of my heart, that the risk creators and artists may be taking by telling things, expressing themselves, will just decrease a little bit because really this is something that is good for India and good for its people to be able to express all different point of views and to develop themselves with humor.
My last question for you is what kind of Indian foods or what kind of Bengali foods you like to eat much?
27 years ago, I was fond of all the Bengali sweets. But you know how life evolves. I'm not so much into sweets now. So probably I was really happy to meet all the Bengali fishes again. So when I have the opportunity to have some fish here, the way they cook it, like clear water fishes, quite different from what we have in France with like ocean fishes, then I'm so happy to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.